welcome to Toffee Blues, your source for all things Everton. I'm here with Chris Sweeney today, who's written a fantastic book, a biography about Tommy Gravesen, obviously a bit of a cult hero at Everton from his time there in between 2000 and 2005, and then he came back on loan, obviously in about 2007. Obviously after it hadn't really worked out for him at Celtic, but we still love Tommy Gravesen, and you should really give the book a go. So we're here with Chris, who's written this fantastic book. Could you tell us a little bit about the book, Chris?
Hi there. Yeah, well, the book's it's really a bit of a homage, I guess, to sort of Tommy Gravesen. Just sort of talking about his life, about his football. I mean, I think what I tried to do was try and maybe show a bit behind the scenes. You know, maybe people know him for being this kind of rampaging, sort of wild footballer, but he's actually quite a sensitive guy. You know, he's got quite a lot of quirks that maybe people surprise. You know, he's maybe a bit more. There's maybe a bit more to him than people assume. You know, I know he gets called Mad Dog. I mean, that's obviously Everton gave him that nickname, but I think there's a lot. About him that maybe people don't know, and maybe people can appreciate. And also, I think he's a last, as the title says. I think he's the last of the modern footballer Mavericks. I don't think we'll see anyone like Tommy make it in football, and not only that, you know, go to Everton, Celtic, and all the way to a club like Real Madrid.
Yeah, definitely. That's a really interesting one. We'll definitely touch on that in the interview as well. Obviously, you mentioned the title Mad Dog. I think one of your sources said that was disrespectful or something like that, but that was kind of a term of endearment from Everton fans, that we call him, because he was a mad dog. He charged around the pitch kicking people, as great as he was. But I don't think it's not disrespectful, is it? That's what he pride himself on, surely.
I think so. I think the issue is that I think there's a lot of things that he sort of got different names during his career. In Germany, he was the humour bomb, and at Everton, he was Mad Dog. And then when he went to Spain, you know, they did the tabloid paper, they did a big cover, and they put him as Shrek, and they called him, like, you know, the ogre. And I think maybe people started calling him a lunatic and a screwball. And I think maybe over time, you know, sometimes I think these names are easy to throw out, and sometimes people mean them in different ways. And I think definitely Mad Dog was a term of endearment. And I think he understands that at Everton. But I think in other places in his career, particularly towards the end, I think maybe he felt he couldn't be himself, and people were giving him these labels. And I think maybe, like I say, he is quite a sensitive guy. So I think maybe it sort of chipped away at him. But I think he understands at Everton it was in terms of endearment. And obviously everyone I've spoke to at the club, and ex-players and fans, and, you know, people like yourself, sort of media around the club, everyone's got nothing but love for him, and he definitely knows that.
Yeah, definitely. He's a sensitive guy, and he's probably quite difficult because he did shut himself off from the media for a while. So I just wonder, like, how difficult was it to really write about him, considering he did shut himself off from the media quite a lot during his career?
And it made him, it's difficult but also easier, in the sense that, you know, if someone's doing a lot of media, like a lot of footballers today, all the information's out there. You can go on their Wikipedia. So really, it's not much of a challenge. You're also just sort of copying, sort of cutting and pasting a book together, which maybe might work, but it's not very fulfilling for an author like myself, and it's also probably not very fulfilling for fans and people like yourself if they know everything. So it actually made it nice, and I think it was a wee bit of a challenge. I did ask him to be involved at the start, but one of his agent, his kind of friend, a guy called John Siebeck, who was a former footballer as well, played for Manchester United and Monaco. He told me I was disrespectful for writing the book without Thomas, but I hadn't even written the book at that point, so I don't know how he knew it was going to be disrespectful. But in some ways, I felt actually it was better he wasn't involved, because if someone sort of says, "Oh, you know, that guy's really crazy," or "that guy's really this," it has more, I think, have more weight coming from someone else than you. As a person, because we all have an image of ourselves, and probably a lot of the times it's maybe not accurate. But if other people are saying it about you, then I think maybe you get a truer picture. So I think it was better in a way. And I think also Thomas doesn't see himself as a maverick. He's only can be himself. So he probably doesn't appreciate maybe how different he is from other people in some ways, because he's only seen it through his own eyes. So I think it worked out better that he wasn't involved. I mean, it's up to him. I don't know if he's read it or not, but you know, he shuts himself away. That's his choice, and I've just got to respect it.
I hope he does read it. I hope he does. I do think it's wrong for what's his name, Silva back. I do think it was wrong for him to call it disrespectful, because he hadn't written it. Obviously, I thought it was wrong, and hopefully he does read it and he realises it's not disrespectful. It's just paying homage to the player, as you say, because he really was a character and he deserves to be written about. Obviously, it's a as you said, it was a rich unmined topic that needs to be delved into, because it was just a wonderful player that has to be written about, because we can't just rule that out. Obviously, he's a real character of the generation. We have to write about him, and good on you for doing so as well. As we were chatting about just before the interview as well, you used a few Everton-related sources as well. Could you tell us about those?
Yeah, well, I mean, I spoke to Darren Griffiths at your club. I mean, he's a great guy. I know, a real great ambassador for you guys, and was really helpful and sort of connected me to certain people. So I spoke to Davy Weir, I spoke to Alan Stubbs, and and I spoke to Archie Knox. I spoke to three of them. I spoke to other people as well, but they were the three sort of guys in the dressing room at Thomas's time that really gave me their time. Archie obviously brought him over with Walter Smith. They signed him, and then his captains were Stubbs and Davy Weir, and they had loads to say about him. I mean, absolutely loads. I mean, when I asked Archie, I said, and Archie was with Alex Ferguson at Manchester United, Aberdeen, so he's all the success at Rangers he had. And I asked him, I says, can you tell me about Thomas? What did you think compared to other players? And he just sort of paused and he shook his head and just went, my God, what a boy, what a boy. They all had vivid stories, which are all in the book, but then also had a lot of fan engagement. I tried to reach out to fans while I was writing the book, because I feel sometimes with these football books, and I read them myself, being a football fan, a lot of times there's players quoted or there's managers, but very rarely does anyone ask the fans what they think. And I think, well, they're a huge part of the game, and that's one reason why Tommy's such a cult hero, because of the way the fans respond to him. So I wanted to involve them. So I tried to get a flavour of how he was thought about accurately from the fans. So maybe not all of them are directly quoting the book, but Everton fans have made more of an impact in the book than probably they realise, because I wasn't standing at Goodison watching all those games, they were. So it was to have their involvement. But as a whole, and I've had support since the book came out, I'm doing this now with you and other Everton media as well. So yeah, the club's really come over very well and been very, very supportive. So I can only thank all of you.
Oh, no problem. Yeah, I like the way you put it, the fans chapter at the end of the book as well, given the fans' perspective. You've dedicated obviously a whole chapter of your book to fans' opinions of him as well, not just what you think of him. I thought that was great reading through that. I thought that was a brilliant section of the book as well. I was just wondering as well how there's a bit of a double question, but how important do you think Everton were to Tommy Gravesen, and vice versa? How important was Tommy Gravesen to Everton?
Well, I think, first of all, I think they were very, very important to him, because, he comes from a small town in Denmark called Vejle, where he was, part of a community. He was the main man in his team, but he was part of a community, and he never lost that spirit. And he went to Hamburg, and, it didn't quite gel in the same way. And he was lucky that his next move was to Everton, where it's a big club, but you're not a huge club. You're not maybe a Manchester United or a sort of a Man City now, where it's out with control. Whereas it was still tight knit, and he really enjoyed that. He revelled in that. I think being part of a community. He lived in Liverpool. He developed a kind of Scouse accent, the way he speaks English. It really was important to him, and that helped him become a lot better a player. That's where he really proves himself. He starts playing a big role for Denmark during the period of that time. They're qualifying for World Cups. They're punching way above their weight as a small nation. He's playing at the top level. Obviously, he gets a move to Real Madrid, which is, that's no small feat. That was through Everton. And in terms of your other point, how important was he to Everton? Well, if you look at the 3 years, his last 3 years at Everton, obviously he leaves halfway through the second year to go to Real Madrid. But out of those 3 years, 2 of them, Everton finished fourth, and they were fourth when he left. So they got to Champions League qualifiers with Thomas as the main man. The year in between that, Wayne Rooney was the main man. And if you look at the performances, they're a lot lower when Wayne Rooney, or the team overall, wasn't as performing well when Rooney was the main man. I'm not saying Thomas is a better player than Rooney, but for that squad of players and to sort of be the playmaker or be the number 10, Thomas was a better fit than Wayne was. And you can see that in the results, because with Wayne as the main man, they never got up to fourth. With Thomas as the main man, they did. And okay, it's not only him, but as part of a unit, I think he really delivered. I think he really delivered for Everton, and also he gave them a lot of things, a lot of intangible memories. Going off the park, he's stretchered off and he's pumping his arms up in the air and stuff. And all the things he did, he left a lot of intangible stuff that I think is the beauty of football. Like, people, like you're saying, read this book and think about him and have memories of him and happiness. And I think sometimes that's more important than winning cups or things. Football's maybe lost a bit of that soul, and hopefully Thomas was one of the guys that could sort of bring that back. So I think both ways. I think they were both key for each other.
Definitely, I agree. I do think probably Everton need, certainly over the last few years, when people have said we've lost our identity, we've needed a few more Thomas Gravesens. Definitely, we've missed them, and obviously, as you say as well, with with the Gravesen being in midfield. It's better to have a general in midfield than it has up front, because you're just feeding with Wayne Rooney, we're just feeding all the balls to Wayne Rooney, expecting a very young player to shoulder the weight of the team. Whereas with Gravesen, he was able to do that from midfield, and he was able to shoulder that weight. He had a little bit more experience. He was able to do that from midfield as well, so that worked as well. And a part of that midfield partnership was Lee Carsley as well. How important was Lee Carsley to Thomas Gravesen during his whole career at Everton?
Oh, I think he was very, very important. I mean, that's actually, Walter Smith, leaves Everton, and I know maybe there's mixed feelings on Merseyside about how good Walter Smith was for Everton, but his last thing he does is sign Lee Carsley. Pretty much that was his last sort of main act as a manager there. And it's key because it allows Thomas then, because they all say Thomas is attracted to the ball. That was what he saw. He just looked at the ball and he was after it. And I asked Alan Stubbs, I said, did it not bother you? I mean, you're at the back here trying to cover space and running about, and this guy is all over the place. It's not helping your job. And he said to me, well, we accepted that. His part was to be expressive, to make a pass or to take someone on, and we accepted that. But Lee Carsley really was key, because then it really allowed Thomas to sort of be free and not leave the team exposed. Be a tight unit, and hopefully Thomas and other people might open up a defence, get a goal. And, you've got to balance any team. You can't just be, Real Madrid with a great time of, sort of maybe 10 years ago when they had all those attacking players, but they never won anything, because obviously you need to be a unit. So I think Lee really helped Thomas be a unit. And they were close on and off the park as well. I mean, he rented Lee Carsley's flat for a while. They're still in contact, or, they're living different places, but they're still friends. So, yeah, and I think he also needs that kind of sense of community. Again, like I said, so having a good friend at the club, having people around him on and off the park, that's what he wanted. He wasn't a guy chasing limelight or, trying to be, trying to create an image. He really just wanted to play football and have a nice life. He's quite a simple guy in that way.
Yeah, definitely. I think it was the perfect partnership as well, because obviously, as much as Thomas liked to go forward, Lee Carsley could defend and he could cover him, and vice versa as well. Like the shortcomings that Carsley might have had in going forward, Thomas Gravesen certainly made up for. So it was the perfect midfield partnership. But obviously they looked very similar, and they obviously. Number 16 and 26 led to the suggestions that Real Madrid actually signed the wrong player. As you mentioned in the book, Florentino Perez, the Real Madrid president, said he wanted to sign a defensive-minded player who could break up the play, and that was pretty much a perfect description of Lee Carsley and not Thomas Gravesen. So that's an interesting little thing. What do you think about that? Do you think the Real Madrid actually did sign the wrong player?
I don't think they did, but I think there might have been some confusion about maybe what they thought Thomas was, or maybe they came and saw him and did see shades of Lee, saw maybe Lee Carsley do something and got an impression it was him. I don't think they expected Lee Carsley to step off the plane in Madrid, but I wouldn't be surprised if there was some, because they are very similar build. Haircut or lack of hair, should I say? Number 6, like you say. I mean, the one person who did have a different opinion on this is David Weir, who said that he said that to him, Thomas, you needed a free role, undoubtedly. But he said the other thing you could do with him is if you gave him a role exactly to the letter, just do this, he would be okay. It was when you gave him any form of choice that he would just chase the ball. But he said if you said to him, just stay here to here or only do this, then he was okay. So he was the one person who thought maybe it could have worked in Madrid being that defensive midfielder if it was extremely clear what he was supposed to do and only do that, nothing else. But yeah, I think most of us realised that he wasn't a defensive midfielder. But he goes over to Bernabeu. He doesn't disgrace himself. He played in some big games, and he played in Champions League games, El Clásicos. So he did Everton proud. I think he represented the club well over in Madrid. So, but yeah, it's another chapter in the wonderful life that is Thomas Gravesen.
He did, yeah, and he's probably changed his style of play. I think you mentioned in the book as well a little bit, about how he did change a little bit at Madrid because he was needed to. Really, he signed as a defensive player, and it's not his nature to be that kind of defensive player. But he did adapt to the circumstances, and he did adapt to the role, and performed it quite well in Madrid in the end. And they appreciated him for that, and obviously he did represent the club well as well. Just some of the anecdotes I really enjoyed in the book, such as the one where Denmark teammate have found the picture since where he gets his private parts out and puts him on the head of his teammate, and there's a picture going around the internet of of that moment, and it was fantastic as well. So I thought, could you possibly tell us a little bit about some of the practical jokes he played at Everton?
Yeah, well, actually, in the book, there's actually a picture of that, but I've actually got the photographer who's lying on the ground, his angle of it, which is even more graphic. We've had to obviously pixelate certain issues, but I thought it was quite fun to show it from a different angle because everyone's seen it from the far away angle, but he was actually saw this shape appearing at the top of his frame as he was taking his picture. I mean, Thomas was just out there, it was just. I mean, that's the kind of thing he would do in front. That was in Romania, before a big World Cup game, and that's the thing. He didn't ever maybe judge situations. He didn't think about tomorrow. It was always very spontaneous. Kind of like the way he played football, really, just sort of in the moment. And this is what he did, and he did loads of things. I mean, he brought dynamite to training at Hamburg and left a big crater in the field. When he moved to Hamburg, he actually put Gravesen, HSV, which is like the kind of HSV is the kind of German abbreviation for Hamburg, the football club. He actually put that on his buzzer in the city centre, so if anyone was passing by and wanted a chat about the football, they could just press his buzzer. At Celtic, Aidan McGeady, another former Everton player, he talks about Gordon Strachan doing this big team talk and going through things. And he looks round, and here's Thomas sitting in the dressing room looking through a newspaper with the eyes cut out. During the team talk, and it goes on. I mean, he's also another team talk with Strachan. Strachan saying to him, "Right, Thomas, today, don't talk to the referee. Just leave the referee alone. We don't want any decision. We don't want any dissent. No yellow cards. Keep your mouth shut. Don't talk to him." So it's an old firm game against Rangers. They're getting ready to go out. The referee knocks on the door to check the boots. Of course, who opens the door? Thomas Gravesen, and he just says, "Sorry, lad, can't speak to you today," and slams the door in his face. That's the kind of guy he was. He was just so different. I mean, there's a great story from Everton when his girlfriend at the time, was from Denmark, his kind of childhood sweetheart. She was a female player, so she was playing for Everton ladies at the time. So Archie Knox would tell me after training they would go into they used to train then at Belfield. They would go into the sort of the big indoor hall there, and they'd play one-on-one, her and Thomas. And Thomas would be fizzing balls in and sliding in and taking her out, and he'd be playing like it was a man. He just didn't. He just didn't change. He was like a big kid, and I mean that in a very nice way. He was a very honest big guy who really just did things. Just lived by his own rules, cut from a different cloth. He at one point he was driving a small Nissan Green Mica around Liverpool because he didn't like in the sort of bad rainy weather of Liverpool, which I'm from Glasgow, so I know all about that as well. I mean, he didn't want to have a nice car, so he would sell all his cars. He had a Porsche or a big Ford Jeep. He'd sell them and he'd buy like a banger, and one of the famous ones was this green Nissan Micra, and he was telling all the clubs, "Oh, it's great for parking in Liverpool." Just a totally different guy. I mean, there's loads and loads of stories. I could go on forever, and there's even now more on the internet popping up since I brought the book out, and some people say they're true, some people don't. There's loads. Mike Tyson thinking he was out of control and asking for his shirt and wearing his shirt all around Denmark. I mean, if Mike Tyson thinks you're out of control, then you probably are a bit of a special individual.
Yeah, definitely. There's some fantastic anecdotes in the book, and just for the listeners as well, there's many more. So make sure you do give it a read because there's some quality stories in there as well. Obviously, he was a bit of a mysterious character, but I was just wondering as well, where do you think Tommy's up to? What's he doing at this present moment? Where's he living, and what's he up to?
Well, he's left Las Vegas. He has left Las Vegas. He now lives back in Vila, which is where he started, which is not a surprise because that's probably where he feels most comfortable. I mean, he's an absolute legend there. I mean, all the people I spoke to, they have a big respect for Thomas, and I think it's because it's a small place, and he went out into the world, and he got all the way to Real Madrid, English Premiership, and World Cups, and he represented them well. He didn't conform, he didn't change who he was, which I think is nice. He didn't kind of sell out. I don't know if that's the kind of phrase now. I mean, you see a guy like, to me, Zlatan Ibrahimovic, good footballer, but I think he's a bit of a buffoon, with all his kind of, antics and try to give this an image and persona, which we all know is not really him. He knows he's putting an act on, and Thomas wasn't like that. He is who he is, and I think he made the people of Vila very proud. So he's back there. He lives a big white kind of tall apartment building. He has the penthouse there. I'm told by a couple of people that are close to him, if you want to hang out and you want to meet him, just hang about the city centre and he'll go for a coffee and talk to you. He's a very nice guy. If you're in the media and you want to get into his business, no, he'll probably tell you to bugger off. But he's there. He does a wee bit of punditry, sort of. He's dipping his toe in that. He did one interview, but again, it was all very superficial about football and very kind of. He doesn't really do stuff talking about himself, and I don't think he's really done any such series interviews for a good, or maybe close on 15 years, like sort of talking about his feelings and other things, not just sort of general bits about the game, you know. So bit of a mystery, and in Denmark he's known as a unicorn because he is so he's so mysterious. There's a lot of stuff, rumours swirling around him, but he's back there, and he's hanging out with his old friends, Stig Toffee as well, an old footballer, and some of the old guys they all sort of hang out together. So. Yeah, I think he's enjoying life. He's left the bright lights of Vegas behind anyway.
No, he's probably one of the great characters football scene, to be honest. And obviously the topic did need to be delved into, and that's what you did with this book, which is fantastic as well. It really did a rich topic that needed to be delved into. And one of the claims you made, which was really interesting, was that Tommy is the last Maverick of the game of football. Do you think there's any budding Mavericks in world football at the moment?
I was starting to think about this, when I was writing the book, and I think the way I think sometimes people look at Maverick as this kind of like failed player, like sometimes you saw someone that could have been good, but they drank too much or they had a cocaine habit or something. And I think that's kind of wrong. I think it's actually more someone who does something that's kind of, there's that intangible spirit where, maybe they're not the best player, but there's something you remember about them. There's something that they give you that other players can't. Like, to me, I love watching Ronaldo and Messi, but I would never say they were Mavericks. I would never say they leave that kind of intangible thing that Thomas seemed to do and other players have done down the years. So I was trying to think about it, and I can't think of any player that... I mean, if you think to the Everton squad now, is any player you'd love to hang out with, you'd love to know more about? I'm struggling, and even in England, I'm thinking, is there any English player or an English team right now or a Scottish team that I'd love to know more about that I think would be really interesting? Maybe they have these personalities and they just don't show them. Maybe they don't have them. I think the academy system and a lot of money in the game now has changed a lot. Social media probably has changed some things. I just wish they would be themselves and maybe not hide it. And I think Thomas is a great example to any kid out there, because whatever you do, whether it's football or something else, do it your way. Be yourself. You don't have to change. You don't have to conform. I mean, he got all the way to Real Madrid. He never did it. So, anyone that tells you can't do it, well, there's an example of someone who did it his way, So good on him. But no, I can't think of any you can think of any. If you get any ones that you were hanging on to.
It's quite difficult because, as you say, I agree with the point you made in the book about it's quite difficult in terms of academies nowadays bring up players in a certain way to behave in a certain way, and they do have a model for them, and they kind of shush the personalities a little bit and tell them. You give them media training and tell them to act in a certain way, just just look forward to the next game kind of thing. Just shush the personalities out, and that's a great shame because that was one of the best parts of the game. And obviously you talk about as well in your chapter in your book about football mavericks of the past. You talk about footballers who've expressed their political views as well, and that would never be done nowadays. That would never be allowed to be done, apart from obviously Sam Allardyce, who came out recently, the ex-Everton manager, supporting Donald Trump, which is an absolute load of crap. But apart from that, the players, they just they're not the same anymore, as you say. But I just thought to close the segment as well, just a little bit about Everton Mavericks, and I've got some names for you to run past you, and I want you to let us know how much of a Maverick you think they are and why. But there's a few names anyway. Obviously, the obvious one I'll put forward to you, obviously your countryman as well, Duncan Ferguson. What do you think?
Oh, Duncan's definitely a Maverick. I think you'd have to give him Maverick status. I mean, he was well known for scrapes in Glasgow. I mean, he had a period of Glasgow where he used to have taxi queues. He used to feel he had a divine right to go to the front of any taxi queue any time of the night. And there's numerous stories in Glasgow of scrapes and incidents he had in taxi queues. And obviously, he was the first footballer ever to go to jail as well. So when he headbutted Jock McStay against Raith Rovers. So he was a real character. And there's a lot of stuff that but Duncan Ferguson, to me, is someone I wish we'd hear more from him. Like, I wish he would express a bit more. I mean, now I know he's an assistant coach and all that, but I wish we'd hear more from him because I think people love that, But I think we've got to give Duncan a solid, I think he's a solid 9 out of 10 Maverick, man. And also, he loves keeping pigeons, which is not really your normal. I mean, that's what even when he was a young guy, that was one of his main hobbies, keeping pigeons. So yeah, I think they give it all a 9 out of 10 in the Maverick status for definitely.
That's quite impressive. It's quite a high Maverick rating. Duncan Ferguson, obviously, he well deserved as well. Obviously, there's a story about him beating up or holding hostage the robbers. He tried to his house as well. That's in the book as well.
And also his dad. I think his dad as well, because when he was at Dundee United, Jim McLean was a kind of very old kind of tyrant manager. He would go crazy. Really, really on the players and like intimidation. And I think at one point Duncan Ferguson's dad was trying to beat him up. So I think he became like almost frightened of Duncan Ferguson. So there's loads of stories about that, as well, up at Dundee United and at Rangers. And he was also a damn good player. I mean, he was a hell of a good player in the air. I mean, I remember a few games. Duncan Ferguson seemed to do sometimes. I think when he used to raise his game for certain games, and I think maybe that was the only thing that let him down, from my opinion. But against Manchester United, I remember a few ding dongs at Goodison where he was pretty damn good in the air. I mean, he'd a good timing on him. Something about his leap. He seemed to be really. If he was I've never seen anyone dominate him in the air. Is maybe what I'm trying to say. He seemed to have a real talent for that, and he probably could have went on to better things. I think. But yeah, definitely 9 out of 10. Dunk. It's got to be. He is.
Definitely. He's still at the club, obviously, as well. Some people say he's only still there because people are scared to let him go. But no, I think he's there, as you say, because of his attributes, and just teach these young strikers like Dominic Calvert-Lewin, who are at the club at the moment, to be that strong in the air. Because if anyone can get as good as that, then we're definitely on the right tracks as well. Just to chuck a couple of other names at you as well, is a man that we interviewed on the Toffee Blues channel last year. Possibly a football maverick, I don't know. As you say, I do think he's one of those who's gone a little bit off the rails and his career's gone off track. Is Royston Drenthe. Obviously, there's been stories of him. I think he turned up at Everton training. He confessed to this as well in the interview, that he turned up to Everton training drunk one night. I think it was about 2 o'clock in the morning with girls on his arm, waiting for training in the morning, and he's just an absolute character. He was frozen out by David Moyes in the end for being too much of a character. But what would you give him in the Maverick rating?
I'm trying to think, because I remember he went to Real Madrid as well. He had a spell at Real Madrid. He was pretty pacey, but I thought he was more of a wasted talent than a Maverick. I feel as though he didn't do enough to earn Maverick status. He's kind of what I'm saying. I think a lot of people maybe look at him, but to me he was maybe just a bit immature, or didn't take advantage of it. So I don't feel Everton fans are going to look at him with love and respect and welcome him back. They might take pity on him, but nah, I think we've got it. I can't give Royston the Maverick status. I think I've got to give him a 0 out of 10.
Yeah. He doesn't deserve it, does he? Compared to the likes of Tommy Gravesen and Duncan Ferguson, he doesn't deserve Maverick status. But there is one who played for Everton who I think could be a possible Maverick, is Paul Gascoigne. Obviously, there's plenty of stories out there of his tricks in the changing room and out of the changing room as well, everywhere. But what do you think of Paul Gascoigne? Is he a Maverick?
Oh, absolutely. I think the only thing that actually makes Thomas actually stands out more than him, because at the time, like I said, when he actually comes to Everton, his first game he starts, it's Paul Gascoigne and Tommy Gravesen in the centre of midfield. Now, I mean, God Almighty, that must have been some dressing room, and that's what Archie Knox was saying. I mean, he thought Gravesen was more outlandish than Paul Gascoigne, so that's really saying something. So yeah, I mean, Gascoigne certainly was a Maverick. I mean, he was a great footballer. I don't think Everton saw the best of him, unfortunately. I think maybe he's a wee bit physically, wasn't he quite, he problems off the pitch as well, probably didn't allow him to show his best. I think that was probably at Rangers or maybe at Spurs, I'm not sure, or actually probably for England was his best period probably. But no, I think we've got to give it to him. I think slightly less than a Duncan, because I think there's more known about Gascoigne. I think to me, have a Maverick, there's got to be that wee bit of mystery, a wee bit. So I think I'd give him a 7 out of 10. 7 out of 10 to Gaza. Yeah.
Not bad. That's a fair rating. I think one we mentioned as well before we pressed recording this as well is Oblak Xavier. Obviously the last player to cross between Everton and Liverpool or the other way. He's a bit of a nutter, obviously with the hair and stuff. What would you give him as a Maverick?
Well, yeah, I mean, again, I think he's someone who there's a lot we don't know. You just look at his eyes, he knows a bit of development there. There's something going on. He just seemed like a bit of a character. There was just something the way he carried himself, the way he looked, and he wasn't a bad player. But yeah, I think he's probably, I would say 6 out of 10. But I think that could increase if we did a wee bit of digging. I think there's definitely more there. It was a big kind of. he was like a Game of Thrones, wasn't he? He was that kind of, you can imagine in Game of Thrones with that kind of stature and build and the hair and stuff. He just didn't look like a footballer, which I think also is part of being a maverick. I think sometimes when they look too much like footballers, like Duncan wasn't your average looking footballer, and Tommy either. I think it's quite nice when they're a wee bit kind of different. That adds to it all. it's part of the charm. Yeah, so yeah, 6 out of 10 for him. I think so, But like I say, I think we could go higher if we find out. So if you're out there, Abel, get in touch with Tom. He's the man to to unlock your secrets for you.
Yeah, maybe do an interview with him, or maybe even you can write a biography on this guy. Maybe that's your next project.
You never know.
Yeah, we'll get in touch with him because there's certainly a certain amount of mystery around him. So we'll have to do some digging, see what he's chatting. But next one, anyway, the last one we'll give you is a modern one. In Tom Davies, obviously, we said academy players nowadays are kind of told to act a certain way, and I do think if Tom Davies was coming through a few years earlier, he would be a bit more outlandish than he is, because I do think he has been refined because of these values that you have to adapt as an academy player nowadays. But obviously he's a bit of a hipster. He walks around with his socks down, things like that. What would you give Tom Davies as a hipster, as a maverick?
I think so. I think you're right. I think he's definitely got qualities. Again, he doesn't look like your regular kind of footballer, and like you see the music or the things he's into. I hope we see more of that, because I don't know why players nowadays feel the need to suppress these things. I don't know. We've all individuals. I don't know why they have this thing. But anyway, I think maybe I'd give him 5 out of 10. Based on modern standards. I think if it was back in like 10, 15 years ago, I think he'd be struggling to get more than 3. But we'll see. Maybe as his career goes on, he becomes a bit more outlandish, or he becomes a bit more confident. I just hope I hope players like that come through more, because that is the beauty of football. I think it's too. If everyone's the same, it's boring, isn't it? Yeah, it's nice to win trophies, but you want characters.
Definitely. That's what makes football, really, isn't it? And hopefully we'll see more of those in the future. Hopefully, anyway. But yeah, it's a fantastic book, so make sure you do give it a read if you're listening. And it's fantastic. I think it's on sale at Waterstones for $19.99 as well. So where can we find the book?
Yeah, it should be in Waterstones around the Liverpool area. I'm got to excuse my lack of local knowledge. I'm not sure how many Waterstones there are in Liverpool, but I'm told it's there. So also you can get it on Amazon, and my publisher is Pitch Publishing. If you go on their website, they've got a wee shop thing, and that'll link you through as well. So you'll get it there. But Mad Dog Gravesen, if you punch it in, you should find it somewhere. And I hope any Everton fan enjoys it. And once again, thank you to you, and thank you to all, your colleagues and people like that at Everton for backing the book, helping me out. It's been very appreciated, and I've been sort of welcomed into the family, I guess, in some ways. So it's been really nice. So thanks very much for everybody's help. And like I say, I hope everybody gets it, reads it, and has good memories of Tommy, because he certainly has good memories of Everton.
Yeah, do give it a read. It's a fantastic book. Make sure you give it a read. Mad Dog Gravesen by Chris Sweeney. Please do look it up and give it a read. Thanks a lot, Chris, for speaking to us today as well. Really appreciate it. And join us next time on the Toffee Blues. Thanks a lot for watching. Make sure you like, comment on the video as well, and subscribe to the Toffee Blues. And obviously give Chris's read the book. Read the book. Give Chris's book a read. Yeah, that's the one.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks a lot. And join us next time on the Toffee Blues.